Oh, these are the paying sponsors for the show. If you want to sponsor the show, you can contact me for more information. Shoot me an email at neveragainstudio@gmail.com. Finishers MMA. 3761 Nicholas Street, Easton, PA. If you don't know who these guys are by now, how dare you? They do a show with me called Now We Go. Zach and J.M. Holland run 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu in Bethlehem. They have another school in Allentown, and that's John Thor Blank. These guys are elite black belts in the game. They are doing things no one else is doing in the area. If you're looking for self-defense, if you're looking to get in shape, if you're looking to just get your life back on track, Jiu-Jitsu is for you. Check them out. You can find information on them at finishersmma.com. Zach and JM are the teachers over at the Bethlehem School. At Finishers MMA is for all of their social media. And you can check out Now We Go, which is a podcast we do every Monday. But those guys sponsor the show, and they're beasts. Go check out finishersmma.com. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing is a one-stop shop for all of your plumbing needs. You can reach them at allvalleyrooter.net, or you can call them at 610-762-1656. They are fully registered, fully insured, and they have a 1-year parts labor guarantee. It is the plumber that we use for the show. Any problems that we've had down here in the studio, he's working on some projects for me now. He's stopped by several times. He's working on the studio above this studio. I personally put my guarantee on him. He's a close friend of mine. We grew up together. He told me the story about how he grew this business, and I'm impressed with Jared, and he does really good work. So if you need a plumber, do me a favor, do Jared a favor, call him. All Valley Rooter and Plumbing, 24-hour service. The number again is 610-762-1656, and you can get all the information you need at allvalleyrooter.net. And his social media is at All Valley Rooter on Facebook and Instagram. Rips Auto Detail. If you don't know who Rips is at this point, you are a first-time listener, but that's okay. We're going to tell you all about him right now. Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. Rips, he's the best. He's the best in the area. Highline paint correction, ceramic coating, and you can check out all of his work online. The best place to follow him is on Instagram at Rips Auto Detail. His daily posts of what he's doing over there. If you need your car restored, a boat restored, a plane restored, I don't care what you need restored, he will fix it. I've seen the guy bring things back from the dead. I've seen him work on clients' cars that are just continually bringing them in to get kept up with. He has a ton of different packages, and he can find one for you. So that's Rips Auto Detail, 630 North Nelson Street, Allentown, PA. You can follow him at Rips Auto Detail, and you can get a hold of him through there as well. If you go onto his social media, it's going to have his number and further information on how to get to him. I'm telling you, follow the social media. Give him a follow, show him some love, and check out what he's doing. He's high level, and he's one of our favorites over at the show. So check him out. Luke Delmeyer Custom Knives. They are high-end custom knives made and forged from scratch. Luke Delmeyer, friend of the show, out of Hellertown, Pennsylvania. He offers bladesmithing, farrier services, and blacksmithing as well. You can take classes over there. That is the thing that I push. I have a couple people that went over there, and you take a class and you learn how to make the knife. You start from step 1 all the way to the end, and when you're done with the class, you're walking away with your own custom knife that you made. The classes fill up pretty fast, so I need you to go over there and check it out. You can get all the information on classes and his custom knives on www.lukedelmeyer.com. Custom knives, classes, and more. Check him out. Follow him at Luke Delmeyer. Instagram's where it's at. All of his stuff's on there. He's got videos. He's forging constantly. He's been on some TV shows, and he's a friend of the show. So go check him out. It's Luke Delmeyer Custom Knives, farrier, bladesmith, blacksmith. 5 and Dime Easton. local skate shop in Easton, Pennsylvania, 140 Center Northampton Street, Easton, PA. You can call the shop at 610-393-7448. They carry a lot of local brands, and they carry Fucked as well. They're the only ones that actually are allowed to sell the Fucked clothing line in store. So if you're one of those guys looking for stuff you can't grab anywhere else and some custom things, it's in that shop. I've worked with these guys. We've had them on the podcast. It's awesome seeing the Easton skate scene have their own store. The store itself, it's super cool. It's skater friendly, skater owned, and you got to go in and check it out for yourself. And that's 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA. And check out the sales they got going on. Like I said, a lot of local stuff in there. We're going to collab on some stuff. I'm really glad to have them as a sponsor. It's awesome to see the skate scene in Easton have their own spot. So take my word, you got to go in, got to check it out. You can also check them out online. So it is 140 Northampton Street, Easton, PA, and their number is 610-393-7448. Check them out. Give them a follow at 5 and Dime Easton on all social media platforms. BTG Blasting, back to glory blasting. Why is it called that? Because this guy's bringing stuff back from the dead. Old decks, siding, anything you need. You got a business. He does commercial and residential pressure washing. This guy's got the equipment to give you the best look possible. You got a little one at home, it ain't doing it. He's bringing it all over. He's bringing it over and he's knocking everything down, knocking the mold down, the dirt down. I've seen his work. He's done stuff at my parents' house. And he also just started doing virus disinfection. So if you have a business and you need it disinfected because of the coronavirus and all that, he has taken classes and is completely certified. He is now doing this studio monthly, and I can't thank him enough. I have guests that worry about things going on down here. We are now fully disinfected, and that's because of Back to Glory Blasting. It's fully insured, and it's commercial and residential pressure washing and virus disinfection at this time. You can reach him at 484-241-1711. You can also email him at btgblasting@gmail.com. Check him out. If you guys need any projects done, it's still summertime. You can get your decks redone, your siding redone. You got a party coming up, hit him up. If you got an office, you're running a kitchen. I know a ton of people that own kitchens. You can have it disinfected monthly for a fee, and he comes out and does it monthly. So you can, it's take all your worries away and just get this stuff done for the disinfectant, especially, the way times are now. So that's BTG Blasting, and we thank him for being a sponsor. Glenn Honan, Legacy Landscaping. If you don't know this name, you are not from the area. Glenn is a really good friend of mine, and he just got a new landscaping company back up. We did some apparel for him, and it's Legacy Landscaping. Glenn is the best in the area for landscaping. He's been doing it almost his entire life. I mean, before I was doing any of this, I worked for Glenn, and what he's doing now, it's awesome. It's awesome to see him back in action getting landscaping done, but he can cover all of your landscaping needs. You can follow him at Legacy Landscape, and you can reach them at 610-533-3669. Any questions you have with outside projects, whether you want to do hardscaping or you're looking to put in a pond, put some boulders out in the backyard, have some steps coming up, this guy can handle it all and more. There is not one thing that they're afraid to tackle, so you can reach them at 610-533-3669. What else can I say? He's a good friend of the show, and thanks for being a sponsor. Crawlspacerepairs.com. This is obviously for crawlspace repairs. What's crawlspace repairs? It's all the things that you don't want to do at your home, and you should hire them to do it. They are a family-run business, and they have over 120 years experience. They are specialized in crawlspace repair, encapsulation, and waterproofing. They provide exceptional workmanship and the highest quality materials. They have highly skilled technicians. They are also bonded and fully insured. They always provide free estimates and lifetime warranty for all waterproofing jobs. You can ask about their price match as well. So when you do that, you're going to need to call 1-570-476-5866. You can also go directly to their website, which is crawlspacerepairs.com. If you have any crawl space repair needs, please contact them. 1-570-476-5866. That's crawlspacerepairs.com.
Okay.
And that's going. This is Never Again Radio, episode 61. Welcome back.
Thank you, Michael.
How long has it been? The last time you were here, you weren't here. Well, no. Did you do one here? You did it in the basement in Bethlehem, which was our first studio by Billy's Diner.
That's correct, yeah.
That was so... How long ago was that?
That was 4 years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's nuts.
Or
No,
maybe a little more.
More, because I've been here 3. Maybe 5?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. I don't even know who was podcasting them, because it was myself and Jesse. Was Chris and Brian there?
Brian was not. Chris was there.
Brian barely showed up to shows. He just got drunk. I wanted to have you back on because we're now on video. And I also wanted to get into your story because you've had... What you did with your yoga career has always been remarkable to me. And then... you kind of had the rug pulled out from underneath you. And I knew you would get to where you are now. And I knew it was going to be very difficult. And I would text you every now and then and be like, just keep going.
I know.
And then what the end result was 200 times better than I could have imagined what you would actually turn it into. And there's so many different spots I want to touch on between what your husband, Mr. Amato, did in that facility and the people that came in to help it and what you turned the silk mill into is awesome. And I think you're in 200 times a better place than if you would have stayed where you're at. But I wanted to kind of get into what the hell happened as far as the transition and what it took to even get into the silk mill and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, a lot happened in that time. And since our last episode together, I had about 3 years of successful yoga in the previous studio, Yukado, in Bethlehem Township. And that was fantastic. It was just like a really fun ride and, again, like a successful business, against all odds. We were kind of just like having fun and flying by the seat of our pants, and it worked. It was great. Until it didn't anymore. And there was just a bit of communication breakdown and some shifts in the business that I didn't foresee happening. Neither did my business partner, and our relationship started to break down because of it. And ultimately we went our separate ways. And at that time, I was starting to feel a lot of burnout as a teacher and as a massage therapist, and just even as like a person trying to run a business as well as like facilitate a passion, right? So those are two really different things, and they're hard to marry, I find, at least.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you find that too.
Yeah, it's really hard.
It's confusing. And so I just kind of didn't want to do that anymore. So while I was trying to figure out, and like you said, rug pulled out from underneath me, I had this business and then I didn't have this business, but it's really like my greatest skill set. What am I going to do now kind of situation, and a rush to recreate that or find a new home for those skills and those offerings. And at the same time I was like, well, but do I? Maybe I just want to like be a cashier somewhere or like stock shelves or do something that I can make a bit of cash in to support myself and live on, and just let yoga be the thing that I like to do again instead of where I make money.
That's a very difficult transition to be in. I had to move this studio, I think 4 times. I moved it enough where my friends don't help anymore. So like that's always a good gauge for me. But when you're in the middle of juggling that, all the doubt starts coming in because you realize how much work it took to get to that spot.
Totally. Right. And I had forgotten about that.
Yeah.
Until I needed to do it again. And again, like I got kind of dark and I was like, what am I even doing? What's my point? So it was a lot of soul searching for myself thankfully I had the support. Nat like just insisted, which is like, it would be more helpful for our household if I like made more money, but he insisted. He's like, no, this is what you love to do. You're going to be miserable if you don't. So we're going to make this happen. So he really was like a steady rock the whole time that I was like, I don't know, and like crying and like, trying to bail, my parents included. And, some of my close friends who I let in on, just how I was feeling and what was going on behind the scenes. And I'm so thankful for that now, because they really like pulled me through. So my business partner now, who at the time and has been for quite some time, my best friend Erin Maselli, she found this little spot at the Silk Mill in Easton and begged me to go take a look at it. And I was like, no, I don't want to take a look at it because I don't know if I want to do this anymore. Number one. Number two, I'm going to love it.
And at the time, the Silk Mill had nothing there, correct?
No, there were a couple businesses there, but it wasn't.
Oh, what was it? Like Bosergeist was there?
Bosergeist was there.
Yeah.
Tucker was there. A lot of the apartments were already full. Brick and Mortar was there. Easton Wine Project had just opened. So it was starting to become what it is now.
Yeah, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great little community and I'm happy to be part of it. So, but I knew what the spaces looked like. I knew the aesthetic of the place and I was like, I'm going to love it, like guaranteed. Number three, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford it. Like, I don't want to fall in love with the thing and then not be able to do it. Like, I'm just not in a good headspace.
And that's a terrible feeling
that.
When you look at a place, you're like, this is so cool. How much is it? And they're like, this much a month. And I'm like,
Exactly. And I just did not have any more bandwidth for like upset at that time. So somehow, I'm not sure, we ended up looking at it and of course it was amazing and it was like reasonable and we could make it work. And so it really became a project of everybody else kind of dragging me along. I was like, okay, I like have some skills over the years. I've developed some ability to like do this thing. And, but I'm still not convinced that I want to do it anymore. So it took a lot of hand-holding from the people who believed in me and believed in creating a business there in particular. There really isn't any yoga in that area. So there's Easton Yoga downtown, and there are a couple little studios downtown as well. But, downtown Easton and the Silk Mill may as well be totally separate places geographically. Just because
goddamn fly.
Just because of like driving to the studio and whatever, and we have a parking lot which is nice. You don't have to do like street parking,
and it's close to your house.
It's so close to my house. It's like 2 miles from my house and it's all downhill, so I can just like roll down on my bike.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you take the bike.
Fantastic. Yeah, so we found that spot and thank God Nat is as talented as he is and has such vision and really good taste. So he really took over the reins of making it what it looks like now. So we had to put down flooring, we had to do some electrical work, we had to create 2 massage rooms and create a comfortable enough aesthetic for people to want to like be in there and like take their shoes off. But we still wanted to maintain the integrity of the building and the history that the look of the space conveys. And I think that we've like really come upon a happy medium of those things.
There's 2 things I want to touch on. I want to get back to Nat. And then first I want to ask you, when you were walking through, and did you start getting energy and being like, yeah, I want to do this again, and start being able to picture it out in your head where like, I can do the yoga over here. This is where this could be. And then like, cause I know how you are when you get your creative ball rolling. It's kind of like how I am, where it just like unravels and you're just like, we can do this. And you get a ton of energy from that. Did you get a feel from that? Or were you still kind of like bumming on, you didn't know and you didn't want to get too far into it, or you didn't want those vibes because you didn't know if you wanted to do it anymore? Like, how was it walking through that space?
Yeah, that's a good question, because walking in the space, like I'm terrible. Like, you know how people they try to like or they have a poker face and they don't want to let on. I'm not that. I'm not that. I'm like, oh, I want it. So they could have like upcharged me. I have no idea.
I'm the same way.
Because I was like, how can we make this happen? Oh, you can't do this, that, or the other thing that I'm asking for. It doesn't matter. I still want it.
Like I'll go look at a car and go, I want to leave today. With a car.
Just
brand
so you know, right away.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I was when I walked in. I was like, what about this thing? Can we change that? And can we get this thing over here? What's the possibility of getting water in this part of the building? They're like, nope. I'm like, that's okay. I can work around it.
Yeah.
So yes and no. The way it's laid, you haven't been there?
Not inside. I peeked through.
Oh, yeah.
I was down there for an art show and I peeked through.
It's a much more simple layout than what Yukata was. So it's kind of like a big L. And when you come in the front room, there's like our little desk, like check-in area, and then like a waiting area, a little bit of retail. We had to build out 2 massage rooms over there. And the way the place looked, because then there's this big, gorgeous, like stone wall coming out, it kind of partitioned that off naturally. So it only made sense to put the massage rooms there. And then the rest, when it turns the corner, is just like a big open space. And it's all brick with like paint, like layers, like years of paint that are starting to kind of like degrade. So it's really cool looking. And even though there are no windows per se in the yoga space and it's all brick and concrete, the ceilings are so crazy high and they're like stamped tin ceilings. So they're really beautiful. And then we have skylights in there. So you have a sense of like a lot of open space and airiness while being like really nurtured and like grounded because of the materials that are in there. Now, what I didn't notice during the walkthrough that everybody seemed to notice except me is that the floors were outrageous. In fact, Jason, the owner of Tucker, came in. He like got close to the ground. And he was like, "Oh wow, was there?" And I'm not even going to try to do an Australian accent. But
I wish you would please try.
No.
All right, and
was that British?
Always British every time, every accent for anything.
So he got really low. He kind of like looked at the profile of the floor. He's like, did they use this as a skating ramp? And I'm like, oh, I hadn't noticed, like a skate park. I was like, I hadn't noticed that, but now that you pointed out, it was pretty wicked. But you know, we have Big Nat on our side, so he came in, leveled out the floor for us, and then Nat put down a recycled rubber flooring. So it's awesome.
That's what I wanted to touch back on. Probably my favorite thing, just because I knew it was a tough time for you. And I talked to Nat before I reached out to you, and I was like, "How is she?" And he's just like, "Dude, it's pretty brutal. What's going on? Like, they just had to uproot the school, and I know what it's like having to move stuff around, and I know how passionate about you are." So then when I got to see, and how you mentioned how everyone was just kind of dragging you along, my favorite thing was seeing Nat do the amount of shit that Nat did there. And then I know Nat is extremely talented with doing the cars and everything else. And I know he's very hands-on and how much he's grown with the welding and everything through his job. But to watch him do the things that he did and the amount of work that he did there was one of the most impressive things that I've seen my friends do in a really long time.
Yeah, I agree with you. And, you know, he made a lot of executive decisions about how things needed to be laid out and how things needed to be done in there, and even how things needed to be like aesthetically.
Yeah.
He, because I just couldn't make all the decisions.
Like how he was taking like the pipe fixtures and like using those as things. But then I was like, oh, but I know he did that with a wine rack in his house 12 years ago. It was so much fun for me to watch what he was doing.
Yeah, he really got creative, and, you know, he would check in with Aaron and I and make sure it's what we wanted. Erin, in this regard, doesn't feel as strongly as she does in terms of like business decisions. That's her strength for sure. So she would kind of defer to me, and I was like, I couldn't make a decision. I was like that. I was like that far down, and so he, again, just like pushing through for me, just went ahead and did it, and it turned out amazing.
It was awesome to watch, and then when you got it up and running. It seems like you guys are really taking off, and it was like you finally got into, it feels like a lane you should have been in. Not, I feel like you grow into different things, but I feel like this is where you were supposed to be. Like it was a brand new thing for you. I liked the feel of the place, everything. Like I was like, and then that it was like, you guys are such Easton people. And then I was like, fact that they're that close. And I'm like, Two Rivers is right down the road. I'm like, Porter's is there. I was like, it felt like that was supposed to be your home the whole time.
I can't agree more. Yeah, it's really interesting how, and if I were to plot out my career in yoga and massage therapy, I started in Palmer at Banco Chiropractic, right? And then I sort of moved to where you came to classes at...
With the lizard.
With Francine, the iguana, that's right. Dallas Wellness Center. So I started like creeping my way like around, right? And then I went to Nazareth. I was at Kula Heart.
Now, that's right. I forgot they were there.
Like right across the street here.
It's where the daycare is right now. That's across the street.
So I was there for quite some time, and we moved locations to Hanover Township at some point, but then moving to Yukato in
What was the 512 station, or the place you were at on 512?
512. There were two.
It was all the way down by like where the ducks always are.
The geese. They were geese.
I just pick wrong animals for every.
It was close. But geese are far more common than ducks.
You're on a farm.
Totally. So originally, Hanover Township, we went to that industrial complex. We were in the same building with JBN.
Yeah.
So we were there, and then we moved down the street a bit into that business building. I can't remember. What else is in there? It's right across the street from like Panera and Talbot's.
Yeah.
It's still there. There's a different owner, so it seems like they're doing well. But then from there, went to Yukato. So Bethlehem, started to make my way like a little bit closer to home.
Yeah.
And now I'm like in my backyard, which is great. And then Easton. Erin lives in Easton as well. They're downtown.
Oh, it's got to be so easy for the both of you.
I'm 2 miles away. She's 2 miles away in the opposite direction.
Yeah.
So we just kind of meet in the middle. And she's very much like lived in the downtown like bubble, like socially. Nat and I are sort of peripherally there a little bit more now that the studio has been open. Just, all of the small business owners really support one another. And there's a lot of good social networking down there. And it's really fun.
I tell everyone anytime they try and bring up Bethlehem, Allentown, or Nazareth. Nazareth's never in the conversation, but Easton is the only one, in my opinion, who's doing anything correctly.
Yeah, I don't know insofar as like...
I'm just seeing as from my opinion and seeing the growth and what businesses are doing together and what they did downtown and then now what they're doing at the Silk Mill. Like people can't even get their shit together in Nazareth, let alone like there's more going on in the Silk Mill than what's going on in Nazareth. So like for you to have downtown and the Silk Mill, I just feel like things are being done correctly down there.
I'd say so. Yeah. Again, like I don't really know what goes on behind the scenes. I don't really know anything about like the political agenda or anything like that. But I feel safe downtown. I feel very safe, extremely safe in the Silk Mill. And I never cease to have a good time.
Yeah.
When we're just like bopping around.
It's my favorite place to go, especially for food. Food alone.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Even now with COVID, aside from the whole like stuff that was happening at the Standard for a little bit there, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, I think they're doing a really great job. Mm-hmm.
Where are you guys at now? Because I wanted to get in on this because this is also one of the remarkable things about you that I wanted to bring you on for is that it seems like you never stop fighting to get to where you are, and it seems like it took so much to get here, and now that your guys are planted, you're still figuring out ways to run your business, which is, I feel like most good business owners at this time, you're actually growing to places that you wouldn't have been before, like where I talked before we came on, where I don't know if my business would be where it's at if I wasn't locked down and had to figure something out. And I see a lot of businesses that are now having to be creative for the first time with like their outside seating and that. Yeah. So like with COVID and seeing everything that's going on, because you guys were really kicking ass from opening up and getting and the classes, and you were offering all this stuff. And then now, how has things changed since you had to have been shut down and then now being open again? I mean, did you even stop because of Zoom, or how did it go?
We didn't really stop, but before I get to that, I want to back up just a little bit more,
Perfect.
if I may. But so, teaching yoga in itself has been an evolution for me. And I always struggle, and as a creative, I'm sure you can relate to this. I always struggle with confidence in what I'm offering to the world. And then by world, I mean my community, the two people that come. But, even just putting out there on social media, but, struggle with that confidence, and even just sort of is this purposeful? What am I doing here? So first, it's based on what I've learned, the education and my experiences as a yoga practitioner and then as a teacher, right? And that it was what it was, and it was perfectly great. And then it became about having fun and through yoga, and that's great too. There's a lot of merit to that. Through the transition with the studios and what that meant to me personally, I had to do a lot more digging and see do I want to continue this? If so, why? What does this mean to me now? And I had to trust the practice and the process and my journey through it to decide to move on in that direction, right? And again, yes, I was drug along, but it was because people were saying, including Aaron and Nat, so my closest people, and it's easy to say oh, well, you're just saying that because you love me. But, even people who aren't necessarily personally close to me, but had done yoga with me, asking for yoga with me. So I'm all right, well, I guess people still want this. So, and this is all I know how to do right now, so I'm going to do it. So having to do all of that gave me time and space to really step back and take a different perspective about what I was offering and why. And so the mission of the Valley Om versus Yukado was what it was. And again, it was successful. It was wonderful. It was super fun. It was really a great thing. But this is just something that's slightly different, and I think reflective of my evolution through yoga, as well as Erin's sensibility. She is a competitive athlete since she's a teenager, and I mean competitive. She didn't just compete in sport. She's heart and soul competitive, and that shows up in her business perspective as well. And I'm so thankful for that. But so taking all of that together, we really formed this mission and vision for the studio to utilize yoga, mindfulness, meditation, body work as a tool to help people function better in their daily lives. So it's not just about only doing yoga all the time, or devoting your life and every minute, everything that you do to this practice of yoga or body work or whatever the case may be, but rather using it for a functional purpose, whether that means because you have to spend hours in a car and hours sitting behind a desk, or because you're an athlete and you need to now balance your muscular structure, or because you're stressed out and you're anxious, you have no idea why. You can use it for so many actual real life functions, and we live in real life. None of us are really going to sit and meditate in a cave anymore. Well, at least probably not in the Lehigh Valley. So that's what we really wanted to drive home. So it was just a different, coming at the business from a different angle, and that changed sort of how we decided to label our classes and structure our schedule, and even some of the specialty classes that we offer. That gave it I don't want to say deeper meaning, but just sort of a different use, right? So you could use it as a workout, and you can use it to move your body, and that's great. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But what's the purpose of the movement? And so it's changed in that regard, and I think there's been a great response to it. And it's garnered a different group of people who are coming to our classes, and the way that we're able to relate to them. And so it really became important that we hold consistent space for them. So when COVID hit, we needed to figure it out right away. Because again, we've become this consistent, safe, comfortable space for people to help get through their days more happily and more comfortably. And so we needed to maintain that. It was really important for us to do that. So right away, as soon as we got word that something was going to happen and we might have to shut down and yeah, I don't even remember like who was shutting down first, but as soon as we got word of that, we started bringing our teachers in and recording classes. So we didn't know anything about Zoom. We didn't know if we were even going to be able to like connect with people. We certainly didn't know if we were going to be able to be in studio, and we figured we wouldn't. So we started just compiling like recordings and recordings and recordings of all of our teachers, as much as we could store on our phones. Like that's the that's the material, that's the media we had. That's the equipment we had, and like Google Drive and whatever. And then so we built a nice big library to offer people. So immediately when we did need to shut down, that's what we started with, was offering recorded classes to people. And we were getting really good response to that. And people appreciated that we were thinking about them and trying to stay connected, even when it was very clear that we wouldn't be able to. Come to find out, the software that we used for scheduling and processing, they were really quick to action as well. So they set up classes that we could translate right into live stream. So then we equipped a lot of our teachers with tripods and like all of the things that they would need to record from home and do live stream from home. So we adjusted the schedules in certain ways to make sure nobody was stressed out. And we also didn't know if like any of this was going to work. Like we had never used Zoom before, even to like talk, let alone teach yoga. And we didn't know if anybody was going to be into it. Turns out everybody loves it. So including us, right? So we're doing Zoom, and that was going fantastic. And little by little, we started to build those classes as it seemed like we were garnering more interest and varied interest. So we started adding not just yoga and yoga flow classes, but we added bar classes, which, have you done bar?
No. What's that?
Oh my gosh. It's like this hybrid of ballet techniques and I guess a little bit of yoga, but it's just really specific strengthening. It's wonderful. It's really hard. It's really good. It's good for your back.
I'm in.
Yeah.
My back's shot.
Just for now. We'll get you back. And we added a yoga HIIT class. So, and those have been going great because, I don't know, people don't like sweating around other people. So they can sweat in the comfort of their own home, which is great.
I think there's so much to pick apart there. One, when you built that idea behind your business with helping others, was that because you noticed that that's how you were getting through your daily like things, and that you were using yoga outside of the studio to get through stressful moments and to get through these different things that were occurring? So then were you like, hey, we should apply this to people? And that's super relatable, because everything you said where you're like stress, I do go to therapy. So like, they have these like, hey, you got to meditate. Like you start having weird stuff going on. Totally. You need to sit down. You need to bring yourself down. You need to do your breathing and whatnot. So like, was that the whole thing where like, how did you guys even come up with that? Where you're like, hey, we should do this because this isn't something that really others are doing. And we think that everyone will relate to this. And we're going to actually be helping people, not just having people come in who want to do yoga. Or if you're having people that come in to do yoga, it's not getting personal because it's just like, hey, everybody, let's go. It's a class we're doing at LA Fitness.
Yeah, right. So for sure, in talking with Erin, and we're talking about like, well, what is this going to all be about? Her and I were both like, well, how do we utilize yoga? And we're both like, I just move around. Like, it depends on the day what I need to do. I oftentimes don't need to do like crazy handstands or put my leg behind my head, which is something I can't do. But like, I often don't need to do like crazy postures. What I need to do is just sort of like stretch my muscles a little bit, move my joints a little bit, and then I'm like, good. It doesn't have to be this big, crazy, intimidating thing. It can be, and that's fun to like dissect the thing. But the problem is some people get intimidated by needing to do things right and needing to achieve a thing. So I would find that some people would be discouraged by classes when they felt that they couldn't like achieve the posture.
Yeah.
And it's based on, and I don't want to get like too like geeky about it, but it's based on like how you structure a class. And so it's always been really important for me for people to feel absolutely not disempowered from a class, right? But more empowered and more in their body. And so again, Erin and I talking about like, well, how is it that we do yoga? Let's stick to that. Like we don't have to make it more than it is. It just is what it is. And if it evolves like within the class, if there is somebody who needs to put their leg behind their head to feel like they can go, do the rest of their day happily, well, cool. There's room for that. If there's somebody who just wants to like lay down and breathe a little bit in like a safe space, cool. There's room for that too. What's most important, especially now more than ever, is getting out of brain and into body. And so the way that I see yoga now, and again, like I see it now based on some of the trainings that I was able to take through this time period during COVID when I didn't have to be in the studio quite as much, as well as going through sort of that trauma of losing the studio and having to rebuild. I see now that the stress relief component is the entire thing. So in my mind, the goal for me as a teacher is to offer people totally safe, comfortable space, not just the space, right? Because we're talking about now offering recorded classes. I have no control over where people are practicing. Live stream classes, people practice all over the place. Like one of our guests was just visiting her family in Canada. And so she came on the Zoom screen. I was like, where the heck are you? She was like, oh yeah, I'm in Canada. I was like, that's so cool. And she still like showed up for her practice. Yeah. But like with me, you know what I mean? Because we had been practicing together and that's a safety zone for her, right? So that consistency, that predictability, they get to know like styles and voices of our teachers, and then they get to bring that into their home if they can't come to the studio where they do feel safe now. I'll get to that in a second. But so the first thing to do is just give them this safe space in time, in geography, in whatever, and just give them permission to relax, like pull out of the day for a second, like push pause, whatever you have going on. You're not in crisis. If you're here for yoga, my guess is there's no crisis that you are needed for. So honor that. Like take a break, take a breath. That alone can take just a few minutes and it's profound. So if that's the only thing that happens is somebody starts to like recognize their breath and make it a little bit slower and just like calm the nervous system down a little bit, that's a win. That's a total success in my opinion. After that, now that they're sort of like out of this fight or flight survival mode, like stress management place in their brain, then the yoga practice, like the poses and all the movements and the balance and the effort and the this and the that, that's all, it's therapeutic, yes. But in looking at it from this angle of stress management, it's a distraction. You're using your body, the sensations of your body, the movements of your body, looking at your body, feeling your body move through space and in position as a distraction to get out of your brain. And it brings you into the present moment. You can't help but like get into your body. It'll go back and forth, but you're using it as a tool to ground yourself in your body. After that, when we go to like the relaxation, so we're starting to wind down, we'll maybe do some seated breath work, or definitely in Shavasana, corpse pose when you just lie or you stay seated.
Those are my favorite.
I know. It's not though. It's not everybody's favorite.
I love the end.
I know, me too. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people hate it.
Why?
Well, because they want to like get up and they want to get back to like, I gotta do. And I'm like, no, that's exactly what you don't need to do. Yeah. You need to lay, you need to like down regulate your nervous system, get out of your limbic brain, get out of fight or flight, and allow your body to heal, allow your nervous system to heal, allow that cortisol and adrenaline cycle to just like stop for a second so that your body can go into like a relaxation response. You can go into rest and digest mode. We can't survive if we're just like constantly like, where's the next tiger? I
can't believe that there's some people who just want to get up and leave when they're done and don't do that.
More than you'd think.
That's crazy.
I know. Yeah. So when I see, a person who might do that normally, and there's always some excuse, right? Like, oh, I have to get to the thing and possibly that's legitimate. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But when I see or hear somebody who maybe would be prone to doing that and they decide to like not, I'm like, I did it.
Yeah.
I did my job. They're relaxed. That's like a huge score.
How did Zoom end up? Because Zoom came out of nowhere.
Zoom came out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. And they're like,
now.
hey, you want to know what's a lot better than Skype and is super easy to use by just clicking one thing and we built everything into one and you don't got to do shit.
So great.
Boom.
You know what? I did know about Zoom before COVID, and it's because Erin, the research this woman does for all things related to making a business or even just like anything function better. Endless, tireless research. It's really impressive. And I am so lazy in that regard. I'm like, what's the first one? Is it reasonable?
Hey,
cool.
There's an ad.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. But no, she just like does her due diligence and there's no stone unturned, right? So she found Zoom like quite a while ago when we were trying to like integrate all these different computer systems, and I felt overwhelmed by it, and then we didn't really have enough of a use. But so when COVID hit and she's like, remember that Zoom thing? I'm like, oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's so much easier than Skype. We switched over to it. Jer called me because he's the one who does all the work for the studio, for like the lighting and whatnot, and he called me and was talking about what he had to do because they run a production company. So now everything has to be done through Zoom. And he was like, hey, we're working with this program. It's super user friendly. He goes, I think it's a really good way for you to start doing your podcasts with being able to get guests that aren't in the area. And it just so happened at that time where we were trying to we got a couple guests booked that were in LA and like just different things. And, we tried it and I was just like, man, because Skype is not easy. The other person has to have it. You have to there's all these like things that you have to jump through. There was a lot of like stuff as far as like the audio and the video, where Zoom, everything's built in. So you literally just click, it's on. Oh, you come over.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to do this. It was super user friendly.
It's so easy. And even I know our software isn't the only integration. Like there are a lot of other companies that are using it now, but it's even easy through that. So we go into I'll go into my schedule and I'll see like the class that I'm teaching. I tap it, I tap like live stream and it already pulls up Zoom.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It couldn't be more simple.
Now, do you do the live streams? Skype's, I don't know. I haven't thought about it since. I was like, Zoom, yay.
I have a Skype interview next week.
Yeah.
So I need to
it's similar
to
Zoom. It was more probably on a technical end for us because of like connecting the board and all that.
Oh, that makes sense, yeah.
Where if you just probably use it one-on-one, it's, the same thing as doing the FaceTime. But so now when you switched over to doing all this stuff and offering it and having the video library and all that, when you started doing Zoom now, are you doing your Zooms from home or do you do it from the studio?
Yeah, we were doing them from home because at that time we weren't allowed to really be in the studio, or that was our understanding. And COVID hit us pretty hard differently.
Yeah.
Our business, we're under a year old at the time, and our business we were comfortable. We had done well. And again, that is attributed 100% to Erin, like knowing how business works.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I know how yoga works. I know how body work works. And she does too. But her history is in high level corporate. So she has done studying in business, and she's done a lot of work and experience in high level, high productivity business, like real business. So she brought just so many skills to the table that I could never cultivate in a million years.
Yeah.
And so she really set us up in a different way that helped us be on steady ground by the time COVID hit. So we were more focused on not like drowning, but how can we continue to support our community? That's where our focus was. And so when that happened and we suddenly felt cut off from our community and like, how are we supposed to relate to them? We're sending out these recorded classes or making them accessible, but we can't really know if they even care, if they like them, if it's hitting. Like, we didn't have that sort of exchange that we're used to in person in the studio. So we both, and just the stress of the whole situation, right? We both sort of retreated into our like stress management corners, which meant that she went into like hyper mode controlling, trying to produce and figure everything out. And I go the opposite way. I like totally withdraw and avoid anything that has to do with the stressor. So you can imagine our conversations were a little weird for a while.
Yeah.
But we figured it out and we aired it out and we met in the middle, and thank goodness for that. But so yeah, for a while we just weren't even going into the studio because we're like, I don't know if we're allowed and what's the point. And we had done some trials again with those pre-recorded classes to see if it was even conducive for sound and light and all of those things. And we decided that it wasn't best. And since most of our people were at home and some of our teachers take care of their elderly parents or have kids, they just don't have the ability to like come and go, or they don't want to take the risk, which is totally fair. First and foremost, we need them to feel safe, right?
Yeah.
So again, we made sure that they had like tripods and whatever they needed and access to all the things to do live stream from their homes, and it worked out great. And it was really fun to like see everybody in their own like spots, and we got to practice a lot more with our teachers, which was fun. And so it became really clear to us, and based on the feedback that we were getting from a lot of people, that they really like the ability to practice from home. They can roll out of bed. A lot of them turn their cameras like up to the ceiling, so we can't even see them. We don't even know if they're there, which is fine. It's more fun when we can like see them and actually interact, but whatever, it's cool. But so they like the ability to not have to like come to the studio, and they have the comfort of just being by themselves and figuring it out in their own bodies. And I think that's really cool. And a lot of people, based on their schedules, like wouldn't be able to make some of the classes, but now they can. And so we're definitely going to keep the live stream going now that we've transitioned into the studio. In between that, we were able to, I think when we moved into Yellow, we started offering classes outdoors. So Silk has this great spot next to Tucker, right? There's this open space, and all of the businesses of Building N, that's where I am. It's brick and mortar, Easton Wine Project, Tucker. There's like a DIY workshop there as well. She wasn't really part of the conversation so much, and Separatist Beer is part of our building as well. So most of us got together and we had a little meeting to see how we could utilize this outdoor space and keep everybody happy. So now it's really funny. It's like, yoga's in like the back of what we're calling like the nook, because it's this really cute little spot, like kind of tucked away all the way in the back. So it's like the yoga practice happens there, and then Separatist has like tables and benches a little bit closer to the street, and then Tucker has like all of his, and they kind of like turn around the corner. So it's literally like this sweet little community, and people just kind of walk, and they've been really respectful of like when we're out there, and we don't expect them to cater to us either, but everybody's really like getting along and working together. And it's kind of been really fun. So we have a couple of those still going, but we've been able to transition a lot of the classes into the studio now that we've made the studio more like COVID appropriate. It's undergone like a make under, rolled up a bunch of the rugs so we can mop constantly. And we don't allow students to use the props. So we've actually sold a lot of the props off to people who need them and want them, since we can't like share. And we've measured out like where people can be, so we can have a max of like 9 with the teacher in the studio safely.
We talked about this before we started, about like how this has grown businesses. And I feel like after listening to everything that you just said, like, say things would ever go back to normal, the amount of things that you would keep that you gained from this is almost all of them.
Totally. You know what I wouldn't keep, other than like maybe events, is outdoor yoga.
Yeah.
It seems like a great idea, but logistics, and it's dirty.
Yeah.
And sun, like, I can't handle that much sun.
I burn at the beginning of summer.
Yeah, always. I have some sort of terrible burn. I'm like, oh, summer's here. But yeah, I would keep all of them for sure. And these are things that we probably would never have explored and probably even resisted against, in studio yoga. Of course, we're going to see online offerings, especially like recorded classes, as like almost a competitive aspect.
Yeah.
But it's not. I had people, I had a gal that I know in Arizona reach out to me from Instagram. She saw something I put on Instagram and she's like, oh, you're doing recorded classes? I would love to like take some classes with you. I didn't even think
of that, where now you have people that are completely not even in the area that are still going to be able to attend Zoom classes.
Yeah.
And
not necessarily
get into the library
Zoom.
though.
Get into the library, yeah. And I offered to her Zoom at first because I was like, oh, wouldn't that be fun? We could like practice together. And she's like, yeah, but the time difference. I was like, right, that.
But I mean, even if people were still in the same time difference, you could be doing it where, somebody's not from the area.
Yeah, exactly. And again, like we probably would have seen that as like competition or just like a totally foreign way of doing it that would not be supportive of what we're doing in studio. Like we all have to be in person, but it turns out it's not that way. It's an extension of the studio.
What a great way to put it, with it being foreign, because I feel that's how a lot of everything that I had to start doing, it felt foreign to me. But then when I started doing it, I was like, nah, this is more what I should have been open to in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then it was like, like what I was saying earlier as well, is like you get stuck in these bad habits and you get stuck in these roads, and you have so much going on where it's almost like impossible to break away from what you're carrying, and it's so hard to do. And then it's like when you're forced to do that, where basically this rocked everyone to the core, where everything you were holding is now on the floor, and you're like, fuck. But I always tell everybody is the best part about that is you get to choose what you want to pick back up.
Totally.
And when I started looking at it that way, where I was like, all right, you now have to start rebuilding this, but you're never gonna. I remember talking to my mom, and she's like, well, how are you doing? You're stuck underground. She's like, because in the beginning I couldn't go over there, and I didn't want to, especially with my dad. Yeah. And I was like, I'm all right. And she's like, what do you mean? And I go, I will never have this opportunity again to work on this business for even the first 30. I'm like, everything stopped. So it's like I was able to stop and rebuild that business inside of itself, and you would have never had that time again. And now the things that have come out of that, it's almost like I got a second time to start the business. And when will you ever have that opportunity to sit down and tinker with something that's already working, unless you have a massive team of people helping you out? So for small business, I mean, I feel like it's either destroyed you or made you 10 times better than what you were before.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So that groove that you talked about, like you're just like set in that way and you're like kind of stuck in it. We call that samskara. So it's this idea of like you do things in a certain way and it builds this pattern and you're cutting out this groove. And if you keep doing it the same way, you're just deepening that groove and you're just like in it, man.
Huge fan of breaking patterns.
Yeah, right. And so that's kind of, oh, sorry.
You're fine.
So that's sort of what yoga does. So like even in body, if you're like, so one of the first poses that we do and one of the like quintessential poses that we try to mimic in every other pose, which doesn't make a lot of sense, except it does when you break it down and get geeky, but we won't do that. But anyway, is mountain pose. Tadasana is what it's called. And you're standing. And how many times have you stood? You can't even count them, right? And you just stand. You stand in the same way. You probably lean on one hip more than another. You probably have one or both feet turned out. You probably have your arms in some weird way. You probably have your head. Just all these things. And again, it's because you've stood like that for a bunch of times. And it also indicates like other things in your body, which isn't what we're talking about right now, but it's a pattern. It's the pattern that you're used to and it's where you're comfortable, even if it's not necessarily the best one for you. And so now if we talk about like standing as being like the samskara, we're going to go into a yoga practice and just give you like a dash of a different perspective. You'd say like, all right, turn your toes straight ahead. And it's like, oh, that alone is like, what? I feel pigeon-toed. And then you look down and you're like, I'm not pigeon-toed. That's wild. And then it's like, okay, well, unlock your knees. It's like, oh my God, am I bending my knees? Like my quadriceps have to do all this work. And it's like, okay, well, get out of your low back, like lift your spine up a little taller. It's like, oh my gosh, my core, so much strength. And then like the shoulders, and where's your head? Is it way far forward? Yeah, most likely everybody's is. So we have to pull it back some. And it's like, am I doing a double chin? And probably, which is great that you're videoing this. But and then you just stand, and it's like, oh my God, it just feels so different. And in yoga, you have like not standing in line at the grocery store or something. You're not waiting to like engage in some external thing. The conversation is inside. Like, how am I feeling now that I'm standing here? Like, whoa, it's just really interesting to push pause and get out of what you've been stuck in all the time, just to see how it feels. You don't have to commit to it. Who's going to stand in the grocery line like that, right?
Yeah.
Go back to doing the thing, but you have now this opportunity of like, holy shit, like I have feet underneath me, or I can move my pelvis, or like I can really feel all of my fingertips. You know what I mean? Just things that we don't necessarily get a chance to think about or take the time to think about.
No,
It seems simple,
never, because
but
you just end up in a rhythmic pattern of just doing the same thing over and over and over. And then when you have bad posture, and then like I remember we were at the finishers tournament, and I was like moving all weird, and my one friend just goes, or JM, the instructor, goes, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Man, I have to stand like this because my back hurts." And he's like, "Why don't you fix your back?" And I was just like, "Yeah, I guess it's not good to just stand like this all the time."
Yeah.
Like, but when you're saying that, I'm like, man, that's me. Like instead of me adjusting and like doing things to better myself, I'm locked into thinking that it's totally normal to walk around like this all day.
Right. And
even how I sleep.
We're so adaptive as humans. We are so resilient and adaptive, and it's self-preservation. We're built to say like, oh, there's this hurdle, there's this pain, but I'm just going to like move in this way to like avoid it and keep moving forward in life. Who's attacking me? Who do I have to fend off? Like, what fire do I have to put out? That's more important than like whatever my big toe feels like. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just interesting to be able to take that time, and it's empowering as well, like to really just inhabit your body and move through space from that place.
And that's why I was asking you earlier as well, like with my mom, like she's adapting to having a broken back and moving around. And I'm like, yo, like this isn't normal that you have to keep taking a break. And she's like, well, I want to clean the house. And I'm like, it's not normal for you to just be in pain and just keep doing what you're doing. And then it's crazy because I'm going to notice it more now that you brought that up, because there's so many things that people do where instead of just kind of breaking the pattern, and I've always just been a mental like habit breaker, but then I never even thought about the amount of physical habits that people get just from bad posture, or like just the way people sit in a car, because even though I'm the same way, like my back's so jacked, like I have to sit this way and like angle it, and I'm just like, dude, maybe you should just adjust that instead of completely sitting wrong for the next 5 more years.
Yeah, because that's only gonna like
Get
set
worse.
up some other imbalance, if not worse than the one that you have, for sure. And so that's part of it too. Like we don't have to do anything like super crazy to both strengthen and stretch the body. And when you do things, it's it's a symmetrical practice, but you're in a lot of asymmetrical positions, and you really get to see like, oh wow, yeah, my right leg is so much stronger than my left when it's in this position, and the opposite when it's in that position. And you get those, otherwise you would probably never know those things. Like I can balance on my left leg, but I can't balance on my right leg. What does that indicate? Maybe nothing, but it's interesting to know about. And then maybe you get a little bit better on balancing on your right leg because you're aware of it. You can now add some conscious effort in that direction.
And then you'll be more completely balanced instead of being able to only do it on like one side.
Yeah.
That's super interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Where do you see the school going now as far as what you're going to offer, and where do you see it ending up if this ever stops?
If this ever stops. I know, right? Oh my God. I think we'll probably continue on the same way we are now. Again, like opening has been really, really great for morale, and it's just been really fun to get back to seeing people. At first, like the first class that I taught in studio, it felt really heavy because I was like, oh, this is what we're doing now. This is how we're doing it. And I was like, I don't know about that. And I was also very self-conscious. I didn't know if people would feel comfortable. But my assumption is that if they're coming to the studio, if they're choosing to come to the studio, they do feel comfortable. They feel safe about how we've set things up. So we've been very clear about how we've made adjustments to the studio, both for yoga and massage therapy, our cleaning regimen, what's expected of them if they're choosing to come into our space, and how they need to behave. And so that's been helpful. People know what to expect. And so they feel safe. And that's been really helpful for me to see that they feel comfortable. So now I like feel comfortable that they're comfortable. I'm like super codependent in that respect. So that being said, we'll continue to keep bringing classes into, so we're taking our live stream and our outdoor schedule, which is pretty full, actually, organically, just like built over the weeks that we were indoors and or on live stream rather. So we're transitioning that kind of like bit by bit into the studio, but we are still making those in studio classes live stream accessible. I think at this point we have almost all of them accessible through live stream as well as in studio. And if we don't yet, we will. Because why not? I mean, if we can only have 9 people in the studio, and if, not everybody's comfortable or able to be in the studio for whatever, they're not local or they're caring for their loved ones, or it's just not a good idea, they're immunocompromised, something like this, then, they can be on live stream and join us there. We can have hundreds of people on live stream and 9 people in the studio.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely keep that. And again, as expressed previously, a lot of people are really just digging being able to be in their own space and still like connect with us virtually like that. So we'll keep that, and we'll definitely keep what we're calling the virtual Ohm. It'll play on the Valley Ohm, which is our pre-recorded library. We might change the platform that it's on. Like in a pinch, we just put it up through YouTube and made it like password protected, just so we had more control over how people were consuming it. But we might streamline that process a little bit more and integrate it a little bit better with the other offerings. And then next week, I took a couple of massages this week just to see if we truly did have everything in place and to make sure that I was comfortable and our guests are comfortable in the massage space, and with now how I have to set up the massage table, especially regarding like the face cradle. And it seems to be like everything's in place. So next week I'm going to start setting up massage appointments. I'll have to take only like, I don't know, a few a day maybe, and space them out a lot, just because of all the cleaning and which is fine. It's fine by me. And so, yeah, we're just going to keep, taking small steps in the right direction, hoping that we continue to move towards like a freedom of schedule and not have to move backwards in any regard. Like I really feel for the restaurant industry right now that they have to cut down.
Yeah, what did it go back to 25%?
25%. But I mean, it's good that they're still able to take people inside.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they have the outside seating for now. It'll be interesting to see what happens by winter.
Yeah.
I hope this isn't coming home by winter. I don't know what's going to happen. I just feel like I want it to go away and it won't.
Yeah. I don't think you're the only one.
I want to thank you so much for coming on. Everything I wanted to touch on, we did. And it meant a lot for me that you wanted to come back on, but I wanted to specifically come back on to show everyone what you're doing.
Thanks.
Because when we lived together, when I lived in your basement, I felt like that was at a point when both of us were trying to find a path of being creatively free, and I feel like we both got there. And so I always watch what you're doing, but it hurt me like in a way that I can't really describe when I saw the school get what happened with it, and then I was like, damn, man. And then to see you come all the way back to what you're doing to now doing all this, and you don't stop, and you got your feet back under you, and you're not in a dark place anymore. And I feel it's so important to point that out to people that like, and I do it on every podcast, is if you just keep going at what you're going after, and if you stay in your creative lane and you don't give up on what you're doing, the end result is worth all of the hard work. And I feel like there was so much hard work to put into where you're at now, that hearing the confidence that even when everything is completely shut down, you're like, nope, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. And that was one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on, is to showcase like how much you're shining right now in such a dark time.
Thanks.
And and I want to give you the opportunity to tell anyone on how they can get any information on coming to the school, going to the school, taking the classes, or how your social media works.
Thanks. Can I just like add to something you just said there?
Yeah, of course.
I really like how you said staying in your creative lane, because that's been key for me too. Well, it's not, yes, it's been key for me, but I think it's like so important. It's like we said, like way back when we started this conversation, but it's hard when you're a creative person and you're trying to build a business on a passion and an interest in a creative aspect. And I think staying in your lane is super important, instead of like always looking at like what's the competition doing and how can I like beat or whatever. Like then you're going to become like inauthentic in some degree, and people see right through that, right? So I think staying in your lane, that's been crucial for me, is having the time, the space, and creating sometimes the time and the space to sit back when I feel like I'm spinning out, or when I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, what's happening over there? Like, oh my, what why haven't we done that or thought of that? And then I like sit back. I'm like, oh, because that's not our gig. That's their lane.
Yeah.
And cool, go do that. Like, this is what we do. This is what we offer. And that's where we're going to focus.
It's such a better place to be.
In that direction. Yeah.
And you only learn to get there by getting through all the bullshit. And then it's like, you kind of just like,
patience.
And
Patience
it's like,
and trust.
It's trusting the idea. I mean, like what I said to you when I left the post office and had to do this shit on my own, like it was super scary, man. Like I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm like, I'm supposed to believe in this thing that I've just been kind of doing here and there. And I talk about it so much and everyone else believes in me doing it. And I have to believe in this now.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part. And that's why I always push everyone to do, even where I'm at now. And I know where I'm going to be at in 5 years. And I am so excited.
Where is that?
I feel like I'm just going to be at a place where I'm just doing this and I have no worries monetarily. I have no issues. I'm not living like a pirate. Like I just,
is that how you see yourself right now?
No, but like I just kind of see that like, there was definitely times where I was like, is this going to pay off? Should I keep doing this?
Yeah.
And then now it's to the point where I'm like, yeah, it is going to pay off. And you are going to be able to reach these things that you're able to do. And I said to my dad the other day, and I was like breaking down the business end of it. And the fact that I'm breaking down a business end to him now and telling him how I'm going to make money, he's looking at me totally different than I would be like, hey, I think this guy's going to get on the show and that's going to give me these views. And he's like, what?
It'll be cool.
Yeah, exactly. So where he'd be like, what are you doing for a job? Where now it's like, I say to him in confidence, like, man, in a year and a half, like I'm going to be buying a house. And I'm like, for me to be able to do that with starting this, and you know how hard it is to just get somewhere with it. But it's like to the fact that I know that like, I've always looked at it as like, I never crossed the finish line. And I feel like now I can be like, I did cross the finish line. I did create all this. This is done now. And then now it needs to be marketed and
what's a finish line?
Yeah.
They don't exist.
Yeah. That's true.
World.
And then it's just like, now I'm like, you're here. Enjoy it. Like as crazy and as stressful this is, like I was upstairs painting and I was like, what do I got to do tomorrow? And I was like, I got to get up and I'm going to go on a hike. And then I just realized that I now get up and go on hikes and it's all on my time. Yeah, and I'm not like, I got to get a hike before I got to go into the cheesesteak place and get yelled at because I'm 15 minutes late. And like, you know what I mean? Like, and then I'm like, all right, well, what are you going to do? Well, you're in control of your day now. Yeah. I'm like, whoa. And sometimes you don't realize that you're in control of your day, but that's what all the hard work was for, is because I wanted control.
And you're living with purpose. Yeah. Right? You're not living based on like shoulds and, trying to alleviate some sort of like fear or guilt or burden.
There's no other job where I can be like, hey, oh yeah, I should probably do that. Well, okay, but I got to do this first. Where now you're thinking totally different. And
that's a difference between like engaging in life and like doing tasks all day long.
Yep.
That's a win.
It is. And that's why I push everybody. That's what the show's for.
Yay. What was I supposed to plug?
How to get a hold of anyone wants to do yoga.
Right. So all of the information you can find on thevalleyom.com. And then we're on Facebook and Instagram under, again, the Valley Om. We're just the Valley Om on Instagram and the Valley Om Yoga and Bodywork on Facebook. And then myself personally, I am just Susan Amato on Facebook and Sue Tomato on Instagram.
Thank you so much for coming on. I've wanted to catch up with you for the last year and a half. And even if this is how we did it, I'll take it. We still have to need to go out in Easton and grab a drink or do something.
And I want to hike with you too.
Yes, I'm down. I fell in love with mountain biking the season before. This season, it's hiking. And it was weird. Mountain biking called to me and I just wanted to be on a bike. And then this season, I just kept thinking I wanted to be in the woods. Like I just kept picturing the Appalachian Mountains. And then when I went there, I was probably a couple miles into the hike and then everything goes dead quiet. Ooh. And then I was like, oh yeah, this is why I wanted to be here. So my goal is I want to do 30 miles on the mountain. Ooh. Yeah. I'm going to do it. I just got to figure out the time. Do you
have like a deadline?
No, I want to do it before, August is going to be super hot, but I probably want to do it at the end of August maybe. Mm-hmm. And then the only thing I'm concerned about is I have to start paying attention to water.
Yeah. Do you bring any with you?
I do. I have a large Camelback, but then I went and then I was probably like halfway through it and I was going to like walk what I just did because my friend Dustin went with me and we went car to car. So we parked in Wind Gap and then we parked a car in Bushkill and we got to Bushkill and he was like, I don't have the keys.
Shut up.
So then I was like, I could walk back because I've done long form exercise before. And then he's like, I don't want to do that. And then I was like, oh, well, my water. And then that's when it hit me. I'm like, hey, look, you guys start looking into this a little bit more if you plan on doing a long thing. But that's exciting about it.
Super.
But I'll do hikes. I started doing the old Tatamine Trail. I was there today, and I'm like, I remember when I lived with Nat and Sue, and I'd run from their house to this trail, and I was doing 8 to 9 miles a day.
Oh my God, I know. That's a bear too. I mean, we live on that gosh darn hill.
Yeah,
it's awful.
That hill was terrible.
Terrible.
But we would get over to the what is that? The rail trail there that runs through there.
Yeah, the DNL.
Yeah. So today we went from Tatamine to the end of the road and came back, and I'm like, man, it's weird sometimes going on that road and then realizing where I'm at, and that was when I was at. Mm-hmm. I was living at Cherry Hill. I just quit drinking and I was dating a heroin addict. Yeah. That's when I started on that trail.
Little different right now.
Yeah. We're just babbling at this point.
This could go on for a while.
It can. But I want to hang out. I haven't seen Nat in forever.
Yeah. He says hi.
Hello. So anything Never Again Radio is on neveragainstudio.com. You can get all the stuff there, and I will have all the links for this. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
I think that's the best I've ever closed the show. I usually just get awkward.